it was withdrawn at midnight last night, which means everything associated to that has been also been withdrawn. You can't have free floating regulations that aren't attached to any legislation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Joe Emilio Show. I'm your host, Joe Emilio. Last night, the president announced that we are out of the state of disaster, or the state of disaster has been lifted. But has it really? With what he's calling the provisional regulations, it sounds like we're just in a temporary lockdown situation anyway. Cyril also mentioned in his speech that the regulations from the lockdown will be implemented in the Health Act once public comment has been taken into consideration. So joining me right now is Rob Hutchinson from Dear SA to chat about the president's announcement last night. Rob, welcome back to the show once again. Like I said before, you're becoming a bit of a regular. Not that I mind at all, but it's great to get your input, especially after last night's announcement from the president. So I think the first question I should ask you is, what are your thoughts on his announcement?
I think I share the same thought as most South Africans do. There's major confusion now. Is the state of disaster actually ended, or is it not? Well, technically it is. I don't think Ramaphosa was being too honest about what the plans are. But as we know from the legislative changes, that the plans are to move the regulations to underneath the Health Act, which makes them permanent. So I think when Ramaphosa said it's over and all the regulations will be dropped and we can go back to life as normal and business as usual and opening up the economy, I think no, he's not being completely honest with South Africans at all, because moving the regulations to the Health Act makes them absolutely permanent, and that's a really dangerous situation. So I can guarantee you, in by the 15th, and Ramaphosa actually said that by the 15th or the 16th, the comment period for the Health Act regulations will have come to an end, and they'll implement them. They'll implement the regulations, all the regulations that he said they are now being taken away under the Disaster Management Act will now be placed into a permanent position underneath the Health Act.
Yeah, which is quite worrying to say the least. Okay, well, speaking about the Health Act, like you just said, he did say that. He said that he would implement all that stuff. If he's gonna implement it anyway, what is the point of commenting on your website and through DRSA? I mean, isn't the whole point to kind of prevent that from happening?
Yes, exactly. It is. And normally government doesn't open up regulations for comment, but in this case they have. And therefore we should actually use that opportunity to voice our opinions and get the voice of majority of South Africans straight through to government, and in this case the health department. Yes, they can make a difference, because each person who says something is now a stakeholder in the actual campaign and in the process, which means we can challenge it at a later stage once the regulations have actually come into effect. And funny enough, actually, to chat with our legal team and legal advisors recently, and the best way to challenge this is through the public participation process, where we can't challenge the regulations beforehand because they are subordinate. Legislation regulations are subordinate to a piece of legislation, but once they are enacted, we can take them on review. And to do that, we have to show that we have a significant number of South Africans who we are acting on behalf of, and that we can show through the public participation process.
In other words, it's a bit of a process and it's a bit of a long fight, as all legal fights are. I'm looking now at the website where people can go and comment. Obviously, there's a link in the description. You have over 139,000 comments, which is great, but we need a whole lot more than that. Well, the more the merrier, really. But that brings me on to my next question. So apparently, there's this 30-day provisional regulations, right? I mean, but they hardly seem different. I mean, it's like it's adjusted level 1.560, twice removed, carry the two, trust the science, and stage 12 lockdown. Like you just said, the state of disaster is no longer in place, but I think a huge concern, and I'm seeing the conversation being had, is like, if there's no state of disaster, then is there a law that actually really enforces this provisional regulation?
No, not at all. As the minister has already said, in response to the Health Act regulations, the regulations themselves are subordinate to a piece of legislation. If that legislation is no longer in place or no longer enacted, then it stands to reason and logic that the regulations cannot apply. Because what are the regulations applying to at the end of the day? The Disaster Management Act is a temporary piece of legislation that has to be renewed every 30 days, and it was withdrawn at midnight last night, which means everything associated to that has also been withdrawn. You can't have free floating regulations that aren't attached to any legislation. It'll be absolutely easily challenged in court should anybody be charged under those regulations. It makes no sense at all. So from my point of view, it just seems to be a threat or a temporary measure as they have a gap that they have to fill between today being the 5th to the 15th, when or the 15th or the 16th, when the Health Act regulations come into play.
Yeah, so that also brings me on to my final question. The 30-day thing in itself. I mean, what exactly are your thoughts on this? I mean, do you think this is just a power move? Do you think this is ANC buying time? I mean, what exactly is the point? If it can't hold up in the court of law, then what is the point of that 30-day thing?
Yeah, well, you see, the Disaster Management Act was supposed to expire on the 15th. As we know, the minister's been renewing it on the 15th of every month for the past 2 years. So, because of our court papers and that of other groups, we gave the minister until the 25th of last month to respond. She didn't respond. We gave her another 10 days. That took us to exactly the 5th to today. So they had no choice but to end it or face going to court and having egg on their faces when we removed the state of disaster through the court process. So they had to do it by the 5th year to comply with our legal requests, and that obviously created that gap between the 5th and the 15th. The 30 days thing really doesn't apply. There is a small paragraph in the legislation which does say they must be slowed down and eased in and eased out of it if the danger persists. But even that can be challenged at this stage with such a low infection rate and low death rate and other scientific evidence. So it's definitely just to keep the public in line and until they have actually got a solid piece of permanent legislation in place, which is the Health Act.
All right, Rob. Well, is there anything you want to say in closing that we haven't touched on?
Not much. I think we touched on everything there. I think the most important thing here is that we need to get mass participation on these regulations being made permanent underneath the Health Act. And I'm not just saying that so that we can get numbers up. It really, as it stands now, 140,000 people complaining from a population of 60 million is really not a good representation at all. So we don't want to give government the opportunity to say, well, you're only speaking for a minority, which is definitely not the case. We're definitely speaking for the majority. They just need to let us know that we are speaking for them.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks so much. The fight continues, as I've said before, and as you've said before. So, ladies and gentlemen, links in the description. Please share. Let people know about what's going on. We only really have 10 days, just under 10 days. So keep sharing, keep encouraging people to comment. Rob, once again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely have you back.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joe.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? Leave a comment in the comment section below. And don't forget, all the links are in the description below. Please go give your comment if you haven't yet, and do share. Even if you don't subscribe to this channel, it doesn't matter. The most important thing you can do is share this video far and wide. The more South Africans that give their comment, that give their voice, the more chance we have at fighting this. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.